if you're relying on other people to do the basic fundamental needs for you, you're still in the root. I can't be in a relationship. I can't be there if I'm still in the root, because I still need to figure out how to take care of myself and love myself. Where am I in the vibrational scale? Where do I need work? And then getting in there and doing the work. Back again with my dear friend Allie Lovegood. So I don't know exactly what the line of questioning is, but we do want to talk about this idea of the chakra system. Actually, I feel qualified to talk about this because my knowledge on it, I think, is extensive. And I do have a very well-rounded perception of this. And I know that we've talked about this kind of thing before, but let's see where we're going to go with this. And hopefully we can provide some pretty solid information in a world, especially in the Western world, where there's a very big difference between Eastern and Western philosophy and theology. Let's see if we can come to a happy medium there. That would be the goal.
Yeah. I would also like to talk about energy healing and energy bodies too, if that's okay with you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So could you tell us what real energy healing is?
Well, from my perspective now, as opposed to when I was doing it, are two completely different understandings. So I went through these different phases of understanding of what that meant. Initially, when you're not really practicing it yet and figuring out how to cultivate it, I think your understanding of energy healing is I'm going to either channel energy and correct somebody else's energy, or I actually am able to build myself in a way that I can actually give healing energy to a person, which is, as you get into it and you grow into the energy healing field. So before I really started my practice, my way of approaching it was I want to become as clean of a human being as I can possibly be, so I'm able to house that kind of vibration and actually reciprocate that vibration. So first I had 5 years, 6 years worth of legwork to get to that place where I was removing all of my negative traits and becoming as pure of a human being as I possibly could be. And it wasn't, I think there's a tipping point, and it wasn't until the tipping point came that I actually was able to channel anything for anybody. Mm-hmm. So there's a ton of legwork that needs to be done before. People nowadays, there's no legwork involved. You just go, you take your course, and all of a sudden you're certified and you're a Reiki master. And there's really not the legwork that needs to be done. And this is what we're cultivating now, especially in the Western civilization that we have, is, take a class and now you can do it. Mm-hmm. There's really no requirements outside of, you don't even need to take a class. You can just say that you're doing it and,
right,
and do it. And if people are gullible enough, they'll believe you and pay you for that service. Mm-hmm. But if you're actually trying to really cultivate the true practice of it, I think there's a ton of legwork, foundational work that needs to go into it first, which is where you get yourself to a place where, one, you have to learn to really love yourself and care about yourself and respect yourself. And you need to feel good about yourself, I think, is the first thing. Because if you're not in a place where you are mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, I don't want to say healed, but correct, you can't offer that to somebody else. Mm-hmm. So you need to get there first. I don't think anybody's doing that. It's the same thing with, therapists and psychologists and psychotherapists, and, those people are not usually okay either, but that yet they're out there trying to make other people okay. And I think that this is really the point of it now, is that I think that most people who are engaging in Reiki, because Reiki's the word we're going to hear now, I never used that term. I never associated myself with that term, and that's a whole nother story. For me, I cultivated my own practice, and I found what worked for me, and I saw success in that. But the idea is that I think people should really backtrack themselves and ask, why do I want to do this in the first place? Why do I want to offer this service? Because I think it's a really great way to backdoor your own work. And to put yourself on this pedestal that says, hey, I'm special, I'm able to do this thing. You're not able to do it, but I can do it for you, gives you that leverage there, right? Gives you that authority, or allows you to present yourself as something you might not be to somebody. Mm-hmm. This is what I think is the narrative around it for the most part.
Could you give us a little bit of background on how you started out with energy healing?
Again, it was an uphill battle. And when I was in the Kabbalah Center, which was about, like, I'm going to say around 5 years it took me in the Kabbalah Center. While I was there, I was literally chipping away at the block. I was removing this negative trait, that negative trait. And at that time where I hit that pinnacle, I'm nowhere near that now in my life. You know, I'm not that person. Thus, I don't practice that anymore because I'm not of that I'm not of that caliber of vibration. I still have information, I still have knowledge, but I don't have the vibrational capacity to do what I was able to do back then because that was my life. Now my life is all the things in one pot being stirred up. But I just chipped away at the block. You know, I stopped being dishonest. I stopped, you know, any nasty language, even to the point where I didn't even have judgmental thought. I did get to that place in my life where I'm literally, because I was so happy with myself and so proud of myself and where I was going and so devoted to the service and so devoted to my faith in God that it was top notch. And so I was able to chip away at that block. You know, I stopped removing lustful. The thing with lust too is a very important thing. If you're in a place where your lust is kind of high or even mid-tier, you can't do energy. Like I'm telling you, right, my personal opinion, that's something that has to get tackled. Is your gluttony, your lust, all of these things, your desire for bodily pleasure, that needs to be tackled to some degree. And I was able to get myself to a place where not only I was able to restrict all of those desires, but be totally okay. I wasn't even having those kinds of lustful thoughts. That comes though after a period of time. You need to get yourself over these ridges, and as you do so, the lustful thoughts don't even start entering your mind.
Okay, so let's just refer to Reiki because it's everywhere, right? So if someone is chronically ill or going through cancer and they are just like so desperate to have any sort of relief, what is something that they would look for into, let's just say, like an energy healer practitioner?
In my personal opinion, the best thing that can be offered is kind of diagnosis around the process, right? From an energetic standpoint. Mm-hmm. So let's just say that now, yes, so let's just say, God forbid, someone's sick and someone's in my field. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can tell you what my process would be there, which I think is better than any process that I've ever had, even though I'm not on that vibrational level that I used to be, which is where the chakras come in, and we can talk about that when we get to it. But what is going to help rectify the process is the best thing, because in my personal opinion, and at this point, no one can heal you but you.
Right.
Maybe there's a transfer of vibration or energy, but that's like taking an Advil.
Yeah.
So there's going to be no permanent effect. The only time there's a permanent effect of healing is when a person, if you see in the Bible, like the greatest examples of real biblical miraculous healings are with Christ. Mm-hmm. And if you see, Christ never takes credit for those healings. He said, you did that. It's just, I was the object for you to manifest that. Your faith is what healed you. Mm-hmm. You were certain, you were 100% sure that you were going to be healed. And that's what healed you. It wasn't that I did this for you. You did it for you. Otherwise, I could just wave my hand and everyone's healed. It required the faith of that person. You see it in every healing.
Do you think that it's irresponsible now for a lot of people to go to these energy type healings, knowing that a lot of people haven't done the legwork? Like they just took like maybe a 6 to 8 week class, and then do you think it's irresponsible?
I think desperate times call for desperate measures, and I think that if you're in a desperate place, you'll do anything. I don't think the legwork is even something that's on your table. You're just like, when you're desperate, you'll do anything. And so I think that's a large way that people like that capitalize, because desperate people are also open and willing to believe kind of anything they hear. Yeah. Also at the same time, especially if it's something they want to hear.
Right.
Physical healing, I don't think is on the table. Energetic healing, or let's just say that what is possible is, like, God forbid, a million times you're in a place where you are physically sick. I don't think somebody can remove the physical sickness, but someone might be able to remove the negative entities that have latched onto that person, in Kabbalah called klipo. We might call it negative particles or things like that, which we can talk about energy bodies and how that stuff attaches, but a person can remove that. and actually seal a person's energy field back up. So you can pull out all the negativity that's in someone's energetic bodies. You could also remove, which is what my practice largely revolved around, was pressure points. Because what happens is that negativity, once it rests on the body, it eventually settles in the body, and it goes to these very specific pressure points. And you can actually remove it from the pressure points. You have to remove it from the pressure points. And once it exits out the finger, it'll exit out either the fingers, the feet, the anus, the genitals, anus, or the top of somebody's head. Can come out of the ears, can come out of the nose, can come out of the mouth. Anywhere there's an opening. And also the crown, which is the top of the head.
Well, that's great that you mentioned all that, because I wanted to get into that. How would like let's just say a negative entity attach itself to someone?
They're everywhere all the time. They're like mosquitoes, right? There's mosquitoes everywhere all the time. Most of the time you don't even know you're getting bit by them until you get bit by them, right? There's also so many classifications and degrees of negative entities. There's a caste system. So how do they attach? There has to be an opening for them. They can't just latch on
without the opening there?
Without an opening.
Okay, so how would an opening occur then for a person?
Any even lying, dishonesty, gossip, negative speech, lust, gluttony, any of it. The problem is that we have 3 energy bodies, which we can get to when we talk more about chakras. But there's 3 energy bodies. I also want to state real quick that where I gained most of this is built and bred off my own intuition and channeling of information and experience. So the information I'm going to talk about today is not something I was taught, but I did pull from certain things. I did read the Vedas, I did read the Bhagavad Gita, I did read a lot of Buddhist text, which is where all this stuff is like kind of originating from. But the problem is that the origins of all of these things, like energy bodies and chakras, have nothing to do with the definition of them today. They're completely different narratives. Like as they show up in the Vedas, it's completely a different thing. It's not the same thing as what we've taken it and translated it to, which is where it is now. But what winds up happening is you have these energy bodies, and the exterior energy body, which is called the astral body, can get tears in it or holes in it. And your body is supposed to resonate at a very specific frequency based on several factors, which is a little bit more complicated. But your body's supposed to resonate at a certain frequency, right? You are supposed to have, like a radio, right? And you have your own station. And if you're on that station, you're good. It's when you go below that station is when there's problems. You can go to higher stations. That's totally cool. You can raise your vibration. But if you go lower, then that's when the problem happens. And if your vibration drops lower than the standard of where it's supposed to be, that's when you get what's called astral tears, which is the 3rd energy body, like the eggshell.
So so once one happens, is it more of like a domino effect, or does it fester and putrefy and then just spreads?
What do you mean?
So like say that there's a hole, right?
Yeah.
And then over time it can, like a wound, it can fester and putrefy if it's not handled.
No, not necessarily. That's our that would be the way that we would comprehend something like that.
Okay.
But we're talking about an energetic field here. We're not talking about a piece of fabric. So an opening is an opening.
Okay.
Yeah, a spiritual entity or an apparition, if you will, doesn't need a big tear or a small. It doesn't matter. Opening is opening. Doors open. Doors open.
Got it.
What's going to fester is the attachment to whatever gets in. That will fester. But as far as the tears go and the holes go in your auric field, that's kind of, it could be a pinhole or doesn't matter.
Okay.
A hole is a hole.
Okay. And once you are in the astral body, like say that there is a hole in the astral body, let's go to the 2nd energy body on that one. Is it easier to get penetrated into that one and have holes or tears or whatever in that area?
If we're talking about the energy bodies, we have 3 energy fields.
Yeah.
The astral is the one that's outside, kind of like our shield, right? It's what
Yep.
protects me and my vibration from everything outside of my own vibration. You can come in contact with other people's vibrations because you do have there is like a sphere around each person. That's where people get into like, oh, I can read auras and things like that, which is also not necessarily true. But then you have your auric field. And your auric field is the essence of who you are. And then you have what's called your etheric field. And the etheric field is the vitality of the body, essentially the energy of the body, which you can actually see.
How would a person see something like that?
Typically, you would start very slow, what you would do is you would put your fingertips very, very closely, and you would stare at the tips of your fingers, and preferable against a white or black background. It depends on how you visualize things, and you'll eventually be able to see a little blue, like a little bluish glowing smoke around your fingers. It'll happen for you, for sure.
Okay.
The harder you try to make it happen, the less likely it's going to happen. But once you just kind of let go and you're just waiting for it to happen, yeah, you can see it. You can also feel it too. And once you can see your etheric field, you can also feel it as well. Pretty much anybody with just a little bit of patience, 5-10 minutes of, close your eyes, taking some good breaths, and putting your hands like this together, and just doing this, you'll feel your magnetic field, your auric field. Pretty easy to do.
How would someone strengthen that field?
Which one?
The etheric field.
The etheric field actually is a very good indicator of where you are health-wise.
Wow.
Yeah, so a person's etheric field will really help. If you can see etheric field, you can really see where a person's health is. That's how you can actually diagnose what's going on with somebody.
So if someone's able to actually see their etheric field and it's very close to the body, what would that mean? That
means that the etheric field is low.
Okay.
It doesn't necessarily mean that there's a health issue. Like for me, for example, someone who's like burning the candle at both ends, typically their etheric field is going to be, because their battery is low. Yeah, so that's a little bit more of a complicated structure. The etheric field is a little more complex, but the etheric field will relate directly to the auric field, which is an easier thing to read.
Okay.
When people talk about aura readings, though, what they're going to say is that I can see the color of your aura, which is not true because you have to look through your own auric field and your own etheric field and your own astral field in order to see somebody else's energy field. So it's like you can't know the color of somebody else's auric field because you have to look through your own. So let's just say that you have an auric field that's higher in blue, right? And why is it blue? Is because your vibration is closer to throat chakra, right? Or mine is, let's just say, red, because mine is closer to root chakra, right? So my etheric field is primarily going to be based around a red color or something like that, which is not even really the case. You can read auric fields through vibration more than you can through like seeing that someone's red or blue. That's, in my opinion, BS. Complete BS. And it's easy. If you don't know what your aura looks like, I could tell you it looks like whatever I wanted you to, right? Oh, it's green with a little bit of blue, and I could tell you whatever I want to tell you because you're going to, again, the more gullible, vulnerable,
Why do you think it's so easily for people to be so vulnerable when things like that happen?
I think that people are very uncertain, and I think people have a very hard time making definite decisions. And so most people are looking for other people to make their decisions for them or tell them the information. That's what I think. I don't think people are really looking to have faith in themselves and their own ability to collect information. I think people are looking for someone to tell them.
Which is what happens a lot. Okay.
Yeah. Until that person takes the narrative that they're being told and then starts relaying that, and that's how religions and cults are formed.
Yeah. And then hopefully one day they wake up and realize that it was.
It's very hard. It's very hard to do that.
Yeah.
Because then you have to admit that you were wrong for whatever X amount of time. Which again, for me, I was in many different organizations, cult, whatever you want to call them. Cult, the word cult for me does not necessarily mean bad. I think most people hear the word cult and they immediately think bad. It's not necessarily true. If you look at the actual definition of a cult, it doesn't necessarily mean something bad. It's just an organized way of belief and system with prominent. The prominent system in a cult is the belief system, and it's usually involving something not like people, places, things. You know, not so much the focus on God. Yeah, most cults are idol worshippers, so it's idol worship.
Got it.
Yeah, I mean, even if you look at the church, right, which is the most,
Yeah,
practice, it's all idol worship.
it is. I would like to get back into something that you mentioned a little bit earlier, was the aura field, the auric field. So if you can see the etheric field, which is the light blue color, let's get into the auric field a little bit.
Yeah, so the auric field is essentially going to be the encyclopedia of a person. Can have past lives in it, can have current lives, can have karma, all of it. So it's the essence of who a person actually is. So a person could come in front of you and say, I am X, Y, and Z, but the aura field will tell you A, B, and C.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The aura field is going to tell you the truth, the facts, where a person is not going to tell you the facts.
So I've been around you long enough, and I've witnessed this from you myself, and you read me so easily. Is that from the auric field?
What you're talking about right now, and when you're saying read me, what do you mean by that? Because I would, if I was on the other side of it, I'd have that question.
Okay. So last time we were out in Tucson, we were during in a live sale, and you told me that one of my past lives I used to torture people, and I was like, dude, that makes so much sense because I have a connective tissue disorder. But it was very interesting the way that it was just so random. We were in the middle of the live, and you just randomly said it. That's what I'm speaking about.
So, well, that's one very specific narrative, but also anybody who actually, the thing is that, like, in order to really know me and the layers of my personalities is kind of complex and vast because I have such a spectrum of personality, right? And it's all true stuff, which is the craziest thing. None of it's an act. You know, from the most ridiculous human being, like, that you can kind of come across, to one of the most serious human beings you can kind of come across. And I have that range depending on what's going on in front of me. What's being presented to me is what I'm going to reciprocate. This is very baseline, fundamental, easy peasy stuff. Whatever is coming in my direction is what you're going to probably get from me. So when, again, you're talking about someone like you who you're not a stranger. If I'm within a 3-foot range of somebody, I can tell you exactly what's going on with that person, where they are mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. I still have that ability. I do.
And the accuracy that you have from my experience with just being around you and you randomly saying stuff, I'm just
for example, and again, it's not about like bragging or boasting. It's about like you want to be in that place where you're sensitive to everyone around you, so you know how to serve everybody around you. You know what to do for like I was saying before. Like I want to help you. I want to do something. I want to solve. You're not feeling good. You're not feeling well. I wanted. What can I do? That was what I said. No.
Yeah.
That should be the point. Not that like you're like special or you know something or whatever it is. If that's your mentality, you're never going to earn that gift anyway. You're not. If your agenda is I want to feel good or special or high vibrating, whatever it might be, you're never going to get that ability. It's not going to be a real thing.
Yeah.
But for me, when you're saying reading somebody, there's so many layers to that, and depending on my level of care for a person, my respect for a person, my appreciation for a person, there's so many different levels to it. If you're going to talk about like something where I would never come out and tell somebody something about a past life. That's like I have to. Like you need to be in my very immediate circle for me to say something like that. That's not something I'm going to be walking around talking to people about. But if I know you on that level and I have that kind of relationship with someone, then I'll pretty much say anything.
Which is true. And the people who are around you on a regular basis, they would agree with me on that.
Yeah.
But you know,
I'll
like
say
you said,
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got no filter. One way or the other. Whether it's pleasantries or unpleasantry.
Okay, so someone who has a lot of stuff going on in their work field, how would they?
Well, everyone has a lot of stuff going on in their work field.
Okay, so let's just say like the daily stress stuff. How would someone handle something like that? Like, how would they? What would be the step to take to?
One of the most practical things I can say about this, because I taught this for many years after I left the Kabbalah Center. What I taught primarily was energy healing, and I taught chakra, energy field. I taught this for many years after I left the Kabbalah Center. And one of the things that I would try to express to somebody is like, imagine you have somebody who is of a first grade reading level, trying to teach somebody who's of a second grade reading level how to read, right? This is the kind of the situation that you wind up in. I cannot read you if your vibration is higher than mine. I can't hear that frequency because my frequency, let's just say, is like 100.3 on the radio station, right? And your frequency is 102.3. I can't turn that dial. I won't be able to read you because your vibration is higher. If it's lower, I can read your vibration, no problem. So that's one of the things that's also really relevant. A lot of these people who are energy healers and who are doing all this work, their frequencies are low yet, and they might be dealing with people who are even a higher frequency, and they're telling those higher frequency people X, Y, and Z. But they're completely not capable of doing that. But they're doing it. The difference is in the perspective and the consciousness of the person. If you're in a desperate place, doesn't matter how high vibration you are, you're willing to go down in vibrational scale to someone who's not desperate. That's what separates one from the other.
Wow. Okay, so whenever you were doing energy healings, what was the most miraculous thing that you experienced?
I saw a lot. I mean, miraculous meaning that that there was an actual change. It was the problem that was coming, that problem that was on the table was not on the table anymore. For me, that's miraculous. No matter you could have a bruised nail, or you could have, God forbid, a tumor or whatever it was. Like once the removal of a problem from the table is miraculous. The problem is that it doesn't last. It's a Band-Aid. Let's just say this Let's just say this. Let's just say that someone is of a vibrational caliber where they can remove a tumor. They can channel that kind of energy that trumps the tumor, right? Let's just say that it's a possible thing. God forbid, a million times someone comes. At that time, especially when I was doing this work, someone came, they got on my table, I did the work. By the end of the session, there's no more tumor. Let's just say that, right? There's no more tumor there. Between the person getting up from the table and going to their next doctor appointment, they bring the tumor back.
From thought alone, do you think?
Of course. What did Jesus say? It's your faith, it's your certainty, right? So even if I can remove the tumor, you're going to bring it back within the next hour. It's like when you go to meditation class and you sit there and you're like, ooh, and you're all relaxed, and then you leave, you get in your car, someone cuts you off, fuck you, and what happens to your meditation class? Over. It never even happened.
Yeah. Okay.
It's all consciousness, it's all perspective. That's why I'm saying no one is capable of healing themselves except themselves. Because even if I could do that for somebody, within the time span of, an hour, a day, a week, whatever it is, that's undone. It's like when in the Bible, Jesus comes walking on the water, and Peter says, call me to you to come onto the water. And Jesus says, come, and while Peter's out on the water, walking on the water, the wind comes, he gets scared, and he starts sinking. Yeah. While Jesus Christ is standing in front of him, telling him he can do it, while he's doing it, he still starts to sink. This is where we are, all of us. The most miraculous thing I ever saw was, there's many stories, but my favorite one was there was a girl who had a phobia of her elbows. So actually, this is a long story, but the one person led to one person, it led to one person. And actually at the time, people probably wouldn't know this, but I was a really relevant in that field at that time. I had people coming from all over the world actually to come see me from word of mouth, you know. And this person was from Chile, and I had worked on one of the family members and then another family member, and it got around that whatever information got around, and there was the aunt of this person who was in Chile who had a daughter, and the daughter had a phobia of her elbows, right? Her whole life. When I met the girl, she was like 16 or something like that. And they actually had to make a special brace for her so that when she would sleep, her elbows wouldn't touch the side of the bed. If you touched her elbows, she would, melt. You know what I mean? Her elbows couldn't touch anything. She couldn't even wear jackets. Apparently, this is what I was being told, and what seemed to be pretty true. And anyway, they flew from Chile to come to see me in my office, and about 20-30 minutes into the session, I was holding both of her elbows. And when the mother came back to pick up the daughter from the session, I never saw somebody weep like that. Yeah, she was bawling. So that's the thing that sticks out to me the most. Mm-hmm. Not just because of the healing of the situation, because the girl never had the phobia to begin with. She just needed to turn that switch, right? She just needed to flip that switch. This is all in my head, mm-hmm. right? Because it is. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with your elbows.
Right.
There's something in your head. It's a switch that you just need to flip. And at that time, this was also towards, after like 3 or 4 years into my practice there, where I was pretty serious in my certainty, because that's what it takes. You need to be absolutely certain. That's how you get from point A to point B very quickly, is your certainty.
Could you guide us through the experience that you went through while doing this energy healing for people?
It depended on the person.
Okay.
Every person was different, and it depended on what you were really working on. For me, what I was looking for was the rectification of whatever it was, which it's like when any kind of industrial work that you would do, or like if you're an electrician, mm-hmm. and a breaker goes off, right? Or a fuse blows. Let's just say a fuse blows. You take out the old fuse, you put the new fuse in, and the lights work. It's the best way I can explain the concept for me, because again, my experience around all of this stuff is going to be very different than the modern age. Also, people who didn't do the legwork first and foremost.
What was it like physically, mentally, and emotionally for you during those energy healings?
In the beginning, it was definitely a lot more difficult, and on all kinds of levels. But as I progressed, it became drastically easier. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely took its toll in certain ways. Physically was one of them for the most part, especially when I was inexperienced and still building and understanding the craft there. I was using myself as a filtration device a lot of the times, and I was getting overly involved. As opposed to just working on the outside and channeling it the way that it needed to happen. I was just getting overly involved. So I was putting myself in between the two.
What did you do during that time to recharge yourself?
It went through a really interesting process. I was trying to figure out how to ground out this stuff, because I although I was building and cultivating this on my own terms, I was still reading other people's stuff. I was visiting other energy healers. I was seeing what they were doing. So I was in my diligent legwork stage. But what really wound up resonating with me was, like, number one, I took all of the information, ran it through my own filtration system, and then number two, popped out the result. So that was what I was doing at the time, and I started to figure out that I needed something to act as a buffer, there's many different things to do. Even one of the things that worked really well for me was, in the beginning I was using crystal quartz, but crystal quartz was kind of like a jack of all trades. It's a little too generic. What eventually I found out was, and why I'm like have so why I made my way to the zeolite mines, actually, in particular apophyllite, was that I started to put a lot of value around apophyllite, because apophyllite is an amazing filtration system. And I had this piece of green and white apophyllite. It was it was a flat piece. It wasn't heavy, but I would put it over the belly button of whoever I was working on, and it acted as this thing that just kind of pulled stuff up to the surface, so that I wouldn't have to dig so deep all the time. So apophyllite was one of those things that worked really, really well for me. Better than quartz, better than plants. And then at the end of the day, at the time I lived in the city, and I lived in this building, and they had this huge courtyard, beautiful courtyard. And I would go out into the courtyard at night at the end of the day, and I would sit underneath this very big tree that I built a relationship with, and I would, filter whatever it was into the tree, and the tree was really helping me.
Do you surround yourself with plants now on a regular basis? Like, do
No.
you still connect to trees and stuff?
I love plants, for sure. I love plants, I love rocks, I love animals.
Do you still have the connection with certain trees though?
Certain trees, yeah, I can, that's a whole nother thing. That's not something I would ever really go deep into.
Okay.
But you can have a relationship with a tree.
Okay. Let's get into the chakra system. So, can you explain, not what the Western chakra system is, because I think that's so much regurgitated information.
Well, that's where an explanation actually comes into play.
Yeah. So, could we go ahead and get into the chakra system?
Well, yeah, chakra means wheel. It also could mean cycle. The first time we see the terminology around chakras, which I'm not going to get into that, if you want to do your own diligent research on it, you can. But where we're going to really see it pop up is in the Vedas. Is the first time we're really seeing chakras. But it didn't necessarily refer to what we have it, laid out to today. So what it originally was referring to kind of more was like this king in the center of a wheel, and turning the wheel in different directions, and that was the show of the king's power and authority. This is the original kind of interpretation around what a chakra is. And then eventually, as we go through different forms of yoga, we see that different forms of yoga have different chakra systems involved. Like Bhakti yoga, which is what I primarily studied, is literally revolving around one chakra, which is the heart chakra. Mm-hmm. There's really nothing else involved. It's a one chakra system. And then as you go up, eventually you get into Hatha yoga and Kundalini yoga, which have 7 chakras in them. Mm-hmm. And then you can have more or less, give or take. Some have 5. There's variations in chakras, but really the 7 chakra system comes from Hatha yoga and Kundalini yoga. That's where your 7 chakra system comes into. It was eventually brought to the U.S. through Western standards. Several people brought it through, also based on who kind of started introducing it into the Western civilization. You'll have different kind of groups and like ways of thinking, kind of like different kinds of churches. So it's a similar thing, but really the thing that it actually relates to the most in my personal experience, and what actually wound up kind of connecting the dots, because first for me was Bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga was the first thing I really got into. Then the next thing was actually Kabbalah. And the tree of life in Kabbalah, the Sphirot, are the chakra systems. Mm-hmm. Same. Literally the same. They show up in ancient Kabbalah, and they also show up in the Vedas. Around the same time, which is also very interesting. And again, if you really get into the depths of Christ and the teachings of Christ, Christ was, talking a lot about these. Christ's narratives were taken and put into a way that was suited the narrative of these institutions. But actually, if you actually really look at what Christ was saying and break down what Christ was saying, it's very clear and very apparent that Christ was a yogi and a Kabbalist, from my perspective, based on the teachings and the way he worded things and the parables and the metaphors that he was using, were very, very closely related to ancient Kabbalistic text and Vedas, like probably more the Vedas than anything else. And there's a huge, narrative around Christ left and went to India and studied Hinduism and yoga and things like that, and came back and then became a teacher, right? Because there's that gap missing from Christ's life,
right?
Which would make a lot of sense based on the narrative. Like when Christ comes back, he's not really a Jew anymore. Right. He's a spiritualist now. He's a Kabbalist. And what we see now is really the best, from my opinion, why I also liked Kabbalah as I got deeper into it, is I realized, Bhakti yoga in Hatha yoga are so similar to Kabbalah, like so similar. And so you have the tree of life, which is the chakra system, which is explained in the best way, in my personal opinion, the best way it can be explained. I don't think there's really a better way to explain it.
Okay.
So we have the introduction of this idea in the Vedas that there is a king, essentially God, right, that uses these different wheels and turns these different wheels, which essentially can be translated as vibrations, to control everything. You know, also, I could be saying this wrong, but it's Vayana, I think, which is originally where it kind of traces back to this fire altar, which is like a sacrifice, like a sacrificial thing, a little bit associated with paganism, but that's where you get the, like, you ever see the chakras, shapes and colors?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's where this comes from. It was 5. Originally, it was 5. So again, like I said, the chakra system has been cultivated and developed over, you know, generation after generation. So the narrative that it originally showed up as is completely not the way that we interpret it now. But it is relevant to the tree of life. And it's kind of the system that was built off of the narrative coming from the Vedas, and also in ancient Buddhist teaching and other teachings. You're going to see chakra stuff coming up. But what the narrative that we have now is very far from originally how it showed up, the organic appearance of it. It's very, very different.
Why do you think that is?
It's the evolution of anything. You know, I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think people are completely wrong, but I think people are extremely misinformed. And I think that it's very easy for people to read something and then that makes a little sense, and now that becomes, you know, absolute for a person. So I think that that's something that could be, you know, really scary. Okay. And anyway, if we're going to go into the 7 chakra system, which is the one that everybody knows, because it also relates to the 7 sphirot of what's called Zeranpin and Malchut, right? So there's 7 sphirot. Actually, in the tree of life, there's 10 sphirot, but 3 of those sphirot are actually of a higher level. The ones that we're dealing with are 7. We also have 7 days of the week. We have the 7 colors of the rainbow. We have the 7 musical notes, right? So this number 7 is showing up for us in a lot of different places, and is very relevant to the chakra system. Although, again, going back into ancient texts, you could have chakra from 1 to endless amounts, depending on the system that you're adhering to. But for us, we can go in a traditional way. For me, I like it at 10 is my number more than 7 is, because from my own personal experience in doing energy work, I learned that yes, you have your 7 basic chakras, but there's also 3 that are also very relevant, because chakra means wheel, it means energy circle. So what it is it's a vibration that can be measured and calibrated. And then those vibrations go through, just like a rainbow has 7 colors, those colors bleed into each other.
Right.
So the vibration spectrum is from 0 to 100 there. There's not like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, to 100. So a person's vibration falls into a frequency on that scale somewhere that could even be to the 100th of a point. So it could be like 100.01. That's how vast the frequency is. That's why people say there's endless amounts of chakras and things like that, because you could be getting into hundreds, thousands, just like a rainbow. You know, it's not like the rainbow is cut clear at every color. It bleeds into each other. It's a spectrum. And so it is with the chakra system, but people want to take the epicenter of that vibration and then measure that, right? So if we take the color red from dark to light, where we're going, where we're falling in, this idea of the energy center means the center of the color, which would be exactly in the middle. So that might not necessarily relate to you or me exactly. It's a generalization. And that's where we are right now with the chakra system. We're in a very general perspective. And there's a lot of people who go to India and study the chakras and study Kundalini and study Hatha Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Gyan Yoga, whatever. There's a 1,000 different practices at this point. But what's relevant there is not the information. It's the vibrational scale and learning how to decipher that vibrational scale so that you know where somebody is in their process. And again, for me, what happens with me, which is kind of one of the problems that I'm dealing with now, is I'm repulsed by low vibration people, which lowers my vibration in the process. So someone like myself who before I wasn't repulsed by low vibration energy because it didn't really affect me. If you're a low vibration person, now it directly affects me. And now I have to cater to people like that and deal with people and smile in people's faces and all these other things when I know the caliber of who they are and they're trying to manipulate me and show me something different. This is a very hard narrative. It's very hard to have someone in front of you who you know who you're talking to, but they're trying to present to you this completely different character and you have to pretend like they're succeeding in that. It's very difficult to do. I'm not really great at it. I think that you should be able to know from me if I like you or I don't. No matter what, no matter how I'm acting, whatever, I can't hide when I'm not happy with somebody. It's not possible for me.
Yeah.
Or if I really like you, you're gonna know that. You're gonna know like that I actually enjoy you. I'm on one side of the scale or the other kind of. When we're getting into these chakras, yes, we can go into the base, but I want to be very clear that it's a generalization that we're about to get into.
Okay.
And not only that, the root words of a lot of these chakras are very relevant too, which we can discuss that, but again, it's going to take away from a lot of the point which I want to make, which is I think the real value here is connecting the Western traditional chakra system and the narrative around that to the tree of life and to the Sphirot, the Kabbalistic understanding of the chakras, because it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so could we go ahead and get into that, the generalization of those, of the tree of life?
Yeah, so your first is Muladhara, which is what you'd find, I don't speak Sanskrit or pronounce Sanskrit properly, but it's Muladhara, which is the root chakra. And this is essentially associated with like survival. I'm not going to go through all the names in Sanskrit, but you can look them up. You could go to like Google and look up the names of the Sanskrit names of the chakras and their interpretations. That would take like 20 minutes of time here, which I don't feel like doing. But the first one is the root chakra. But for me, and in my practice, in cultivating my own practice, I found that there's something below the root chakra, which I call the base chakra. Mm-hmm. And the base chakra essentially is that thing that's, because the root chakra is attached to your essentially, traditionally speaking, it's the anus. Most people associate it with something else, but it's actually, I don't know, what's the proper word for that? The taint? Is that the right word?
No, that's something different.
It's like the space between your genitals and your butthole.
Yeah, that would be the taint.
Is that the medical term?
I don't know.
I've also heard the word grundle. I don't know if that's. I don't know what. Yeah, the bridge. Right. It's kind of that. The original idea is that it's a bridge, right? And it connects it because what does the anus do? It removes all of the negativity, right? It removes all, processes out all the toxic energy that's in your body, the poison that's in your body from after it takes in something. It sucks the goodness out of it and dispels what it doesn't need, right? Which is largely associated to what the base chakra is doing, because the base chakra acts as this vehicle, this vessel, which I would represent as black, like a black hole that pulls in all of the light and then filters it. Mm-hmm. And I've talked about this, I used to teach this, and this was how I would teach it. And I would say that, when you hear, like when you go to an energy healer and they tell you, your heart chakra is not aligned, or your chakras are not, those people have 0% idea what they're saying. 0. And I used to tell all the, when someone tells you your heart chakra is not aligned or your chakras, ask them to explain that in detail and how they got there and how that's relevant to you. Because if I'm paying you for that service and you're telling me that information, you also owe me the explanation that comes with that information too. Mm-hmm. That's not like you're asking for some bonus or something extra. If you tell me my heart chakra is not aligned, how did you get to that information? What does that even mean? But who asked those people those questions? They're like, my heart chakra is not aligned? Oh my God, right? Can you fix it? Of course I can fix it, right? Like they're a mechanic underneath the car. But this is how it typically goes. Your first thing that needs addressing is the base chakra, which is before your rainbow starts, right? You need to hit that base chakra, which is the filtration system where everything is coming in. You have earth energy coming in from there, renewal of energy, new energy coming in, but then you also have the energy that's coming out of your energy system and circling itself through, because that's what's kind of happening there. Okay. So the base chakra is really where you'd want to start, And what does that mean? How do I clean that out? Is the question that you should have. You know, how do I clean out because when people say align my chakras, it's not an alignment. You know, it's the wrong terminology there. I would never use that terminology. What it is the chakra systems are vessels. They're basins, right? Connected through pipelines, through linear vessels. You have circular vessels and you have linear vessels, just like the tree of life. If you look up the tree of life, the 10 Sefirot is circular vessels connected by linear vessels, pipelines, right? Which funnel energy from one place to the other. And let's just say that the root chakra operates at, I don't know, vibration 10, and then the one above it, right, the sacral operates at vibration 20. That pipeline has from 10 to 20 up to the 1,000th, like 100th, right?
Right.
So 10.1, 0.2, 0.3, right, 0.01, that pipeline is the spectrum. Does that make sense?
It does, yes.
Right, the pipeline is the spectrum there, and what you're trying to do is, it doesn't matter if you're still in the pipeline, you're still in the root. It's until you get to that 20, until you get to the sacral, then you're at that level. Otherwise, you're still down in the root. Even if you're above the median vibration of the root, you're still in the root. So a lot of people might not understand that concept, that you actually, no, there's a ladder. You have to traverse this scale in order to get from level to level. And what do those levels mean? And what do those vibrations represent? But the root essentially deals with the vibration of survival, individual survival. Are you taking care of yourself? That's why you might hear me say in lives, when we get to red jasper, what do I say? You need to do your dishes or clean your room, kids, right? Right. You need to do your laundry. But when I talk about the root chakra, I do say those narratives because that's what it's all about.
And a lot of people may not understand what you meant by that, but they will now once they watch us.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. What I mean is that you can gauge yourself where you are in the vibrational spectrum of this stuff based on what's going on in your life and how you're dealing with your environment. So if you're a person that's not able to really take care of themselves, like if you're relying on other people to do the basic fundamental needs for you, your dishes, your food, your clothes, cleaning up after yourself, right? All of these things, right? If you're relying on somebody else, you're still in the root.
Okay, so someone working their way up the ladder. So we're down in the root, we're at the 10, we're working our way up the ladder. Let's go to the second one.
Second is the sacral.
Yeah.
Well, actually, again, I want to iterate. We're going to go through 1 through 7 here, but in my understanding and my interpretation, we'd now be on the third chakra.
Correct.
But traditionally, we're going to go red, now into orange, and this is the sacral chakra. And the sacral chakra is essentially connected to your genitalia. Which is your reproductive system, right? And this is where you're producing children, and this is where your lustful desires, your sense pleasure comes into play. The sacral chakra is going to be associated with blood relatives. And then essentially into you building your own family. Could be your spouse and your children, whatever comes from your grandchildren, right? And where the real relevance here, the vibration of that has to do with what is your relationship to those blood relatives. So let's just say that you want to determine, how am I doing in that? Am I past that? Are you fighting with your mother? Are you fighting with your father? Are you fighting with your siblings? Are you in a bad relation? Are you married in a bad relationship? Do you have a bad relationship with your kids? X, Y, all of those things will be determining factors on where you are in that process. So it doesn't mean that because this is complex, but it's how you're handling that, right? So for example, I don't have a great relationship with my parents, neither do you.
Yeah.
Right? That doesn't mean that we're stuck in the sacral, but how we handle that relationship does determine where we are in that process. So just because me and my dad or you and your mom aren't best friends, that doesn't mean that we're stuck in the sacral. But if it's something that's handicapping us, then yes, we're still stuck there. Different when you get into spouse and when you get into children. A lot of people get into relationships and have spouses that they don't get along with very well, or things turn sour over the period of time. If you're allowing, you can still be in a situation like that. That's okay. You don't have to get divorced from that situation, nor does it hold you back from elevating outside of your sacral. Because let's just say you're in a situation where you're able to maneuver through that. You're still compromising. You still have integrity there. You're still being understanding, right? All of those things. That's what the sacral chakra is there for, is to give you those tools. So if you have those tools and you're using those tools, even if you're in disruptive relationships or bad relationships, you're still good.
Nice.
Yeah. So depending on how it is, if like let's just say that one of your parents is calling you and you're looking at the phone and you're like, right? You have issues there that still need to be worked on. You need to be completely okay. Yeah, different. But then you get into your children. That's a whole nother ballgame. It elevates depending on the relationship you have with your children. Are you doing your proper job for your children? If you're not, then you're stuck in the sacral. That's why bringing a family into the picture becomes, you go backwards. Having children equals going backwards. Because you got to restart over so many things. You're no longer you anymore. When you get married, it's no longer you anymore.
Right.
When you have kids, it's no longer you anymore.
Right.
So that's why people will say that there's chakra systems inside of the chakra systems. So the root chakra actually has the root of the root, the sacral of the root, the solar plexus of the root, and so on and so forth. The same thing with the Sphirot in Kabbalah, the same thing with the Tree of Life. You have Malchut of Malchut. You have Yesod of Malchut. So each chakra has a chakra system in them. And then each chakra system in the chakra system has a chakra system in them. And so on and so forth. This is where we get the idea of infinity, endless chakras.
Wow. So if you are trying to, let's just say, build some sort of baseline with a family member that was abusive, or like, let's just say a brother or a sister that's very abusive, and you are accepting who they are, you're doing everything else like that, you're still good.
Mm-hmm.
When you get upset that that person does something, or like they do you wrong, they betray you, their normal typical behavior that you can more than likely predict, what are you able to do during that time to help keep you in that sacral chakra?
So for example, let's just say that I am aware of a pattern of behavior, right? I know what to expect. I don't want to expect that pattern of behavior, but I know to expect that pattern of behavior. I know based on a series of events that this is the pattern of behavior that I'm most likely going to run into. Mm-hmm. Now, when I run into that pattern of behavior, which I should be aware of, I'm upset by it. I'm bothered by it. The problem isn't that you should now the problem isn't that you should be bothered by that person or that pattern of behavior. You should be bothered by the fact that you are bothered by something that you knew was going to bother you.
Boom.
Yeah. That's what should be bothersome there. Not that this person did what I knew they were going to, of course they did this to me, of course that, no. You let it happen to you. Mm-hmm. This is the consciousness you need to have there. I let this happen. This is my doing. If you can realize that, then you're okay.
Good. Let's go ahead and go into the solar plexus.
Okay. Solar plexus is going to be represented by the color and vibration yellow. This is largely, a lot of people like to associate this with strength or determination, success, willpower. A lot of people associate it with sustenance, with money, things like that. So depending on the branch of thinking, but essentially that's not really practical. The practicality there is now we've gone from me on my own survival to now a blood relationship, family survival. Now what's the next thing coming? Social survival. Mm-hmm. How am I interacting on a social level? Am I socially awkward? Am I a hermit? Am I distancing myself from social interactions? Do I like being by myself? Do I prefer being on my own? Once I am in a social situation, do I go more in a leadership role or a follower kind of role? All of those things will determine where you are in that vibrational state. Mm. So if you're a person who is extremely confident, because that's really what it is, it's confidence more than it is any of those other things that people like to paint the picture around strength and no, it's more about your confidence in yourself and your ability to coexist in a communal situation. Mm. That's really what the solar plexus is more about, is how do you interact on a communal level now? Friends, associates. Yeah. Also, one of those things that's a good indicator is we all know that person, right? We all know that, like the Karen or the Steve the asshole or whatever it may be. Like if you're that person, that's where you're at right now. Okay. You're in the social, you're in that vibrational status where a lot of work needs to happen. If you're that person where everyone at work, where everyone rolls their eyes at you kind of situation, you know, your modern day Karen,
Yeah.
those people are stuck in that vibration.
So the type of people that are in the leadership position.
Well, leadership position is going to be very different than solar plexus, right? Leadership comes later on down the line, but like if there's a group of 10 people, who are the most dominant personalities in that group? That's more what I'm talking about.
Got it.
Yeah, not like you're leading anything yet. You're just the most dominant personality. You know, like when you hear who's the leader of this group.
Yeah.
Like when you're in a group of friends, who's the leader? It's not. There's no leader there, right? There's no one leading the group there, but there's someone who is going to represent and speak for the group.
The next chakra.
It's the heart. So the heart, which is typically looked at as the fourth chakra, is actually attached to another chakra called the upper heart. And these two are synonymous with each other. It's like the watermelon tourmaline,
Yeah.
where the pink and the green are kind of attached to each other. It's also where in the New Age crystal world, rose quartz comes as the stone of love, where green stones typically don't associate with the heart, right? Most people associate green stones with luck or money. Right? But actually green, the vibration of green is heart. So you would associate that with whatever it is. But here in the heart chakra, what you're essentially getting into is this place of empathy, this place of compassion, this place of relatability. Right? That's what the heart chakra is all about. If you're in a place where when you see unfortunate things, bad things, sad things happening, and you just don't care, you're not in that vibration. And actually, the heart chakra is traditionally going back to traditional understanding around the tree of life, around the Sefirot and Kabbalah, women actually operate in as a woman, your foundational baseline is heart chakra. So you enter in the heart. Like that vibration is where women start, men start in the root. That's traditional, according to Kabbalah. So women automatically starting in the heart, men automatically starting in the root. Which is apparent, which is kind of obvious. It doesn't actually make one higher or better than the other. We're just talking about two different vibrational levels. And yes, the man needs to work himself up from the root to the heart, where that's legwork that the woman doesn't have to do. But for the woman, and again, speaking as PC as I can, but for the woman to go from the heart to the throat is as difficult as it is for a man to go from the root to the throat.
Oof.
So we might be looking at it like, oh, the man has all this extra work, he's a lower frequency to begin. Yeah, initially, yes. Men are of a lower vibrational frequency and consciousness as opposed to the woman who's the mother. The father mentality, if you look at the father mentality, is very different. The father, it's provider. Now we live in a world where we can try to blur those lines or whatever, but really, traditionally speaking, the father is the provider. And the woman is the mother, the one that takes care of the home and the family. This is traditional. I'm not saying that I'm not trying to get myself in trouble right now, but I mean, that is kind of what it is. And those vibrations are apparent based on the chakra system alone. And traditionally speaking, men operating in the root, which they do, need to work themselves up to the heart in order to actually be in a real relationship with a woman. Right? Like a man is not capable of a relationship until they're on that vibrational scale of the heart. And again, traditionally speaking, women's job, because men don't really get there on their own. It's a woman's job to educate and take that man by the hand and bring them up to that level. Something I'm going to say that's a little hard to probably digest for a lot of people is that if you sleep with a man, if you're a woman and you sleep with a man before you get them to the heart, that will never be a good relationship.
Facts. You're not wrong.
I mean, somebody might think I'm wrong, but that's, baseline.
Yeah.
Fundamentals. Because the vibration isn't there yet. And when you connect on a sexual level, on an intimate level, if your vibrations are vastly different, you're going to cause complete vibrational chaos. Complete. Yeah. So to simplify, the heart is this place where compassion starts to enter, care starts to enter, thinking outside, self-awareness, right? It starts to come into play. All of these good things, they're thoughts. But the upper heart is where you turn those thoughts into action, right? I care about this thing. This is really sad. right? Well, what can I do? That happens in the heart.
Yeah.
When the heart is complete, when you're talking about lower and upper heart coming together, oh my God, I care about that thing. What can I do? This is what I can do. This is activation of upper heart. Is now saying, okay, I'm going from a place of like, okay, yeah, of course that's sad and unfortunate, but there's nothing I can do, to a place of, oh yeah, actually there is something I can do. Even if it's on a very small scale, I can still inject myself here in a positive way. This is upper heart. This is completion. So if you're in a place where you're starting to cultivate compassion and care and for no reason, right, which is where the idea of ahavat kinama, unconditional love, comes from. Unconditional love comes from the idea that I care for no reason. What is my responsibility to care here? It's nothing. I'm not associated, right? But I care for no reason. This is where unconditional love starts coming from. But unconditional love is based on action. You can't have unconditional love without the act behind it. Although we use the term unconditional love, but then we need to define what love means. People use the word love like as if it's water.
Yeah. And a lot of people's definition of love is actually abuse.
Well,
it's just their understanding of it.
you have everyone's definition and understanding of what love is, which most of the time, if you really ask somebody to define it and lay it out for you, they don't have answers to that, right? They just, it's a word that's used, but it's not clear what it actually means. And actually, love has nothing to do with emotions.
True.
Love has nothing, because emotions are all illusion. So either it's all reactive. Even positive emotions are reactive, right? Emotions are reactive. So emotions actually, in my opinion, emotions have nothing to do with love. Love is a utility. And if you want to really look at love, the thing is you say, I love that person, right? Well, number one, you can, when most people say they love, it means either infatuation, obsession, things like that. This person gives me something. I'm getting something out of this, right? I'm scratching an itch. There could be an addiction going on there, addictive, mentality, consciousness, line of thinking could be going on there. But that's not love. Just because you feel a certain way about someone, you feel so strongly about somebody, that has nothing to do with love. Your feelings and love, two completely different things. And I mean, if you want to just get my basic brief, because I could talk about that for a while, but my basic brief fundamental idea around love is that I'm willing to do for you whatever suits the relationship to the best degree. Not that I'm going to do for you before myself or myself. That's not the concept that we see in the Bible, the idea of love your neighbor as yourself, right? How can I love anything if I don't love myself first? You need to carry love for yourself. That's first and foremost. If you're basing love off an emotion, then that emotion can't change, by the way. Love is consistent. I can't love you today and then hate you tomorrow. That doesn't work that way.
Right.
That's why I say love is not associated with an emotion, because emotions change so frequently, and love needs to be a constant thing. There can't be a deviation from it.
Right. Let's go ahead and get into the throat chakra.
So throat chakra essentially is the blue color. It's what people would consider to be the fifth chakra. Most of the time we're going to associate that with like communication. Speaking your truth is a very popular one, especially in New Age. Communicating with your higher self might be something that people use in association with the throat chakra, which is not really accurate, where now you're going in a higher level yet. But throat chakra essentially is communication to some degree, but like I've said many times, and what I always taught was that the throat chakra is not necessarily about speaking your truth, it's also about hearing the truth of others. So it's a two-way street there. Communication is a two-way street. So if you're going to say it's communication, then it's not just about you and what you need to say and getting your words out, it's also about listening and hearing what's going on the other side. Because you need to learn to listen. You need to develop listening. Now, one of the things that we'll hear a lot is that men are terrible listeners, right? And the reason men are terrible listeners is because, like I said before, men need to go from root to heart. Like that's the big jump, right? Women need to go from heart to throat, right? That's the big jump there for women, although it's only one. But men to get once they get to the heart, which is could be pretty quick and easy, right? You could do that quick and easy. You could meet a woman at the heart pretty quick and easy, but the jump from heart to throat is still very, very tough. Women are already working on going from heart to throat from the beginning, where men are working to get up to the heart and then have to work to go to the throat. So that's why a lot of the times we see this discrepancy between men and women in the communication department. Again, without being extremely arrogant and egotistical here, let's just say that someone like myself gets to a place where I have decent communication, right? My communication is going to look very different than how you would like it to look or how you would expect it to look, because now I'm in a place where I'm no longer listening to what's coming out of your mouth. I'm listening to what's coming out of your essence.
Yeah.
So that might be construed as a person who doesn't listen. Well,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
because I'm not listening to your words, right? I can hear your words,
Yeah.
but what your words are coming in their empty vessel, they're hollow. What where the real value, the real substance is in what's actually coming from you.
Wow.
That's why when someone tells me I'm fine, and what do I say? No, you're not. And they're like, no, I'm really fine. I'm really, and I'm like, no, you're really not. And then finally they're like, oh, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm not. Right?
Yeah.
So a person's words are very hollow most of the time, which leads us to the next chakra.
Yep.
Right, which is what people call the third eye chakra or the pineal gland chakra. So when you're talking about the pineal gland or the third eye, we're talking about the bird's eye view. We're talking about the bigger picture. Not seeing just what's in front of your face. And so people who are capable of seeing the bigger picture, seeing all the working parts, the moving parts, which really means we can go back to this concept of doing what's best for everybody involved. Right? When you're making your decisions, your decision-making process can be based off of what's best for me and you, what's best for me, you, and the people that I directly care about, and then you have the wider range, the bigger picture, which is what's best for everybody and everything. This is the idea of big picture. When people use the term big picture, it should refer to what's best for everybody and everything involved. That's what big picture should mean.
Nice.
Yeah. Because I do confide in you, especially things that I would not confide in with I'm very open with confiding in you things. I feel very comfortable putting my information in that space. And you've heard me with my complaints, right? You've heard my complaints but at the end of my complaint, this is the most important thing. What is really coming at the end of my complaint?
A solution.
Or taking
Responsibility.
right.
Yeah.
That
Every
always
single time.
that always comes at the end. Yes, this is frustrating. Yes, this is upsetting. Yes, this is disturbing. But at the same time, it's my fault. It's my responsibility, right?
Yeah.
Always.
Every single time.
Always.
Yep.
So that's what it boils down to. That's really the kicker. Now you're getting into pineal gland kind of consciousness here. Is that, yes, of course, you can't stop yourself from feeling hurt or bothered or disrupted or aggravated all those things are going to come up. All those feelings are going to come up. And you can express those feelings, but at the end of it, are you taking responsibility for it? That's what we need to really, this is where leadership comes into play now.
I want to point out something too that I have noticed is not only do you accept and take responsibility for it, you also are able to make a game plan, so to speak, as a way to rectify the situation, a way to make the correction. So that's what I really admire. Like whenever you do confide in me, it's just like, yes, here's the acceptance, here's the responsibility, here's how I fix it.
If it's fixable, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
The thing is that usually coming up with a game plan, which you're right about that's the process.
Yeah.
And that's what the process should be if you're looking to utilize your time. So for me, my processes come out of the need for urgency, right?
Yeah.
So like last night, that was literally last night when I was texting you to get your Airbnb, and I was like, I'm about to start working, right? I'm going to work now, right after an 11-hour day or whatever we had yesterday.
Yeah.
I'm literally starting my second shift, and I was in the shower. I was taking a shower. I was like in the shower real quick, and I'm like, shit, I got and I had another, that was like at 12 o'clock at night or something like that.
Yeah.
And I worked till about 3:30 in the morning from there. This is the spectrum that you need to be. Do I want to? Do I like it? No, but that's what the big picture requires of me.
Right.
And most people would say, "Oh, just wait till tomorrow." Well, that's why you don't enter into a leadership. That you don't belong in that leadership pocket if let's wait till tomorrow.
Right.
Because that's not what you would want from your leader.
Yeah.
The practicality needs to be applied to it. People learn this stuff, and they really new age the crap out of it, and then the practicality just gets sucked out of it. The teachable lessons, the teachable moments get extracted from it but never put back in. And it becomes more about of a thing that I know this information, and that's all that's required of you. But that is completely not the case. Going all the way back to the beginning of this, the legwork is everything. This information comes organically with the legwork. You don't need to read it out of a book. Who came up with this stuff in the first place? How did they come up with it in the first place? All of this information that we're rinsing and repeating, that we're reading from the Vedas, from the Bhagavad Gita, from the Bible, from Buddhist scripture. Who came up with this? Where did it come from? Somebody who did the legwork. That's where it came from. So if you follow the steps of that person, really the teachings are there to show you how to do the legwork so that you can get to these conclusions on your own. And then when you get there, the conclusions might match to the conclusions that you find in these books. And if that's the case, now you have symmetry. That's what the teachings are there for. The teachings are there to provide you with a framework of relatability. And so as you move yourself through this and you start doing the legwork, you start cleaning out your own vessel, these things will just come organically. And that's what happened for me. What I'm talking about right now was not something that I learned in a book. You can't learn the depth of this in a book. You can get information out of a book, but the depths of what I'm really saying here and the understanding of it only comes through experience.
Building up from the pineal gland, we're going to the crown.
Right. But the crown is one of those things where it's really important to reference, like, why is it called the crown? Where is that coming from? Because the crown is seated upon the head of the king, right?
Right.
And who's the king?
Christ consciousness.
God.
Yeah.
God, right? God is in the Bible, in one of the prayers it says, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, like King of the universe, right? The crown of the head actually is the seat of the head, is the seat of the consciousness. It's where human consciousness interacts with Godhead, with God consciousness. So the crown is essentially that place that rests. That's why Jews wear kippas, and why Jewish women will wear wigs, and why most religious people cover their heads. If you look at almost any religion, most, outside of Buddhist really, but most religious people cover their heads with something, right? There's a lot of religious head adornments, a lot. And so that's coming from the idea that this is a sacred place, a holy place, because this is where you as a physical being, embodying a consciousness, meet with the Godhead, with God, with the crown. This is a place that we can't really describe as much as it is an experience, where you're now able to have that kind of intuition, which is now you live in between both of those worlds to some degree. Heaven and earth get married to some degree at that vibration. So you start to understand more the idiosyncrasies. Now you start reading in between the lines. The secrets become available to you. The underlying tones become, the context becomes, all of those things become. That's really what it is. So to get to the crown, it's not necessarily like, okay, now I need to work on something or fix something, whereas just in going back to the third eye, we're talking about big picture, and getting to a place of figuring out big picture and working within that spectrum with the crown. You're there. You're there and you exist. What needs to be maintained is everything below. But at the crown, that's where you are. But above that, there's something called a nimbus. And the nimbus is now what's taking everything from the base as energy, because you have two polarities of energy. You have male and female, masculine and feminine, positive and negative polarities filtering through your body, right?
Right.
You can see that if you take a pendulum and swing a pendulum over your hand, you can see both polarities at work. Some people it goes back and forth, some people it goes left and right. Either way, those are both polarities, right? Positive and negative, or clockwise, counterclockwise, those are both polarities. Either way, we're working off of two systems. Typically, the left side of the body is represented by female. The left side is female, a desire to receive, negative polarity, which again we have to repeat. That doesn't mean bad, doesn't mean negative. What it means is that it's the vagina, right, which receives the penis. That's where this concept all comes from. Is that the woman is the vessel to receive the sperm that comes from the man. Thus, the insertion of the penis into the vagina, which is absolutely necessary. Can I have my coffee, please? Earmuffs. Okay? But yeah, that's where that whole concept comes from, and that's why males are phallic and women are the opposite of that. And you have these two polarities that are coming in and getting filtered through the base. And as they're getting filtered through the base, they're working themselves through the vibrational spectrum, the chakra system. Right, which is chutes and ladders, circular and linear vessels. So the energy is coming in through the base, it's working itself through the system, and then it's exiting out the top of the head, out of the crown, into something called the nimbus, which is the filtration system. So then it takes the energy that's running through the pipeline and it decides which polarity is going which way. That's judgment and mercy. So as chakra energy is churning in you, let's just say, or as you're processing energy, what's going on with you? Are you in a state of judgment? Are you in a state of mercy? Are you in a state of balance? Are you in a state of restriction? That's where you get right, left, and central column from, or what the Buddha calls the middle path, right, the centerfold.
Right.
Most religions are very clear on there's this middle line that has to be walked. Some of them don't have proper interpretation around it, but there's this center, which is really where you want it to be. So that when polarity comes out of you, it goes 50-50. And now you are, what's the word? Begins with a B, ends with an Allen's. Now you're balanced. Balancing your chakras. What does that mean? I hope I'm providing all this information for all these people right now that use these words and have no idea what they're even talking about. Because when you say I need to balance your chakras, what do you mean? What do you mean by that?
Yeah.
Zero idea, I promise you.
I've seen, preparing for this, I was going deep into so many different avenues of rabbit holes. And I kept seeing this one machine type thing that would scan your body, and it would tell you where your chakra systems were. So some of them were big, some of them were small. Some of the chakras were over here. Another one was all the way over here.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of stuff.
The thing is that that's not necessary.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Whether the question is it relevant, is it not? It doesn't matter. That's not even relevant. What's relevant is understanding what we just went through. Where am I in the vibrational scale? Where do I have my problems? Where are my issues? Where do I need work? And then getting in there and doing the work. That's what it's all about. But if you understand the system, so I got to start. Number one, I can't be in a relationship. I can't be in the heart, right? Which is where my love relationships might come into play. I can't be there if I'm still in the root, because I still need to figure out how to take care of myself and love myself. It's impossible.
Yeah.
That's why I said a man can't be in an active working relationship with the woman until he gets to the heart. It's and the problem that we make is that women wind up giving out all the goods before the man gets to the heart.
A lot of people are not going to like this question, or what I'm about to ask. And do you think it's also the responsibility of the mother to get the son up to the heart?
No.
Why not?
Not the job.
Uh-huh.
The job of the mother is not that. The job of the mother is to protect and love and nurture, not to get to get you to the place where you start taking on these vibrational systems yourself. That's the job of the mother. I need to keep you alive until you get to a place where you can start addressing root chakra stuff on your own. That's the job of the mother. That's why the love between a parent and a child is very different than the spousal love.
Yeah.
Two very, very different things. Terminology is the same, but the process there is very, very different. You know, you shouldn't be sleeping with your mother, and you shouldn't be treating your wife like she's your mother.
Right.
So, two very different things. Unfortunately, that's very skewed, right? Especially in relationships. That's why people say, "Oh, I date my mom, I date my dad," right?
Yeah, exactly.
And the reason is because the mother didn't do their job. The reason is because the father didn't do their job. That's why you're looking to date your parents, because you did not get out of your parents what it was that you needed to get to in order to hit that root chakra. You're still looking for the root.
Yeah.
Because your parents never got you there.
It's a big responsibility for parents.
The thing is that what I'm saying right now, and you are as I'm saying some of these things, you're like, I know you're like, holy shit.
Yeah, it's all going on. You read my face.
Yeah, I know you're having though, because even though we've had a lot of conversations, the logistics and the logic and the sense that is coming, not everyone has to agree.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Everyone can have their own, but I'm making very, very, very good sense.
Yeah.
Based off of things that I don't even really speak about very often. It's not even my cup of tea anymore. But everyone else whose cup of tea it is, they have no idea what they're not in this kind of headspace yet.
Yeah.
And the thing is that it's really important that we remember that, like, at the end of the day, like I was saying before, yeah, it's easy for me to sit here and say all these things, but what separates me from other people is not if I'm a good or a bad or a better or a worse person. What separates me from most people that I know is the bottom line, the result. What choice do you make in the end, and are you taking responsibility? That's the difference. You know, people who walk around pretending to be holier than thou, this is a total illusion. If someone's walking around talking about how great they are and how good they are and how much they know and they're spiritual and all this is a person who's completely living in falsity. As opposed to somebody who's not like waving that flag around, who's just confident in their own knowledge and their own understanding of things based on their experience.
Does it end at the nimbus? Does the chakra system?
It recycles itself.
Okay.
The nimbus is like the base takes in both polarities and combines them. The nimbus now then takes what's coming in and being combined and then separates it back out again. It's a you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's taking, the base takes two and makes it one, the nimbus takes one and makes it two. And then what's coming out of the nimbus is going to determine what's the quality of the auric field.
That was my next question.
Yeah, what's coming out of the nimbus determines what happens in the auric field. Because now again, what's coming out of the nimbus essentially is going to be filtered into positive or negative polarity and based on judgment and mercy, and then that's going to enter into your auric field, and then your auric field is going to start to build its character, which can change from today to tomorrow. If you're in a merciful situation, if you're in a mind frame, again, going back to this idea of balance, keeping yourself regulated, never allowing yourself to tip the scale one way or the other too much. You can't be in a place where things are absolutely terrible. You can't be in a place where things are absolutely great. You don't want to be in either of those places because one place leads to the other, and vice versa.
Right.
The higher you are, the more you have to fall. The lower you are, the higher you have to climb. You want to be in that middle ground. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That this is what it means by the balance. This is what Buddha meant by the middle path. This is what the Kabbalists mean by central column.
If a person is in their root chakra, let's just say a woman is in her root chakra, she's dealing with a lot of stuff, and there's a lot going on. How long, like, would it be essentially what I'm asking is, would it be irresponsible for the person to correct everything within like a year period? Like, I know it's impossible for a lot of people to work through a lot of their life lessons during their whole lifetime, but would somebody who is like determined be able to do it within a year?
You could do it in a moment. You know? It just depends on where you are. It depends on where you are. Some people heal overnight, some people heal in 5-10 years. You know, it really just it depends on where you are. What's your mind at? Do you and do you have time? What's the kind, you know what I mean? What kind of time frame are you on? Do you have the time to dilly-dally? Do you have the time to play? Or do you not have time for playing? That's what's called urgency.
Mm.
Urgency means I don't have time to play.
Mm.
But let me summarize the chakra system really quickly. This is how, when I used to teach classes on chakras, this is how I would summarize it at the end.
Okay.
So let's take a caveman, and we have this caveman, and he's living in this cave, and over some time he learns how to provide for himself. He goes out and he hunts and kills a squirrel. He comes back, he cooks it, he eats it, he's surviving, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he gets into this routine.
Yep.
Of how he's keeping himself alive, and he goes through about a year or 2 years of this process, and he becomes very good at his own survival, catching food, sustaining himself, catching squirrel, whatever it might be. This is root chakra, right?
Right.
Now he comes across cave lady, right? And cave lady comes into the fold, and he learns that he needs to provide squirrel for cave lady. And in the process, he starts to care about cave lady and wants to make sure that she eats just as much as he does, right?
Right. Yeah.
Cave lady's well-being starts to become aligned with his own. This is second chakra. Third chakra is caveman now goes out and notices that there are other cave people, but some of those cave people don't know how to catch their own squirrels.
Mm.
He starts to think about this, and they start to build a community where they start to share. Hunter-gatherer kind of community, right? This is solar plexus.
Right.
And our caveman here is in there trying to make this happen. He's, come on guys, let's do this. You can do this, you can do that. Again, not leader, but leading.
Mm-hmm.
After that, caveman starts to build this community, right? They have this community. There's now a sense of community. It's friends, neighbors, right? And everyone's working together to some degree, being led in the direction of productivity by said caveman.
Mm-hmm.
Caveman, all of a sudden, after taking care of everything, everyone's good now in the community, right? Everyone's eating a lot of squirrels. Everyone's very good. But the caveman starts to think to himself, you know, what if there's other people outside of my community who, you know, are struggling? Well, you know, that's a nice thought or whatever it is, but there's no reason to pursue that thought, but that thought happens, right?
Right.
This is the beginning of heart chakra consciousness. What about people that I'm not even aware about? Unconditional love, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm caring about people that I don't even know exist, right? This is
Right.
this is the entrance to the heart. The idea is that I'm going to be prepared just in case I run into somebody that can use care.
Yeah.
Now we're cooking. Now we're starting to get to that upper heart,
Yeah.
right? And so what happens here is that the caveman hears of, oh, there is other people out there, and the caveman goes out. This is upper heart,
Mm-hmm.
right? I know that there's people. I care about those people, but the action of going out and trying to find those people, this is upper heart, right?
Right.
So now the caveman, he goes out and he starts looking for those people. Doesn't mean he finds anybody, but the action is there, right? He
Right.
took the next step here to actively go out and look for those people. This is heart and upper heart coming together. Now, let's just say that he finds new people, right? I just stumbled across 15, 20 people living in a little village. What do we need now? With these new people that we've never met, don't know me, don't know them, what do we need?
Compassion and communication.
Communication,
Yeah.
right? So now the caveman goes from heart to communication. But if the caveman wants to go there and just tell them, you need to catch squirrels. No, he needs to hear. He needs to know where they are. Do you even need squirrels? Do you eat squirrels? Maybe they actually have deer.
Mm-hmm.
Communication now needs to happen. So the caveman can't serve the purpose without the communication, right? So
Right.
this now needs to happen. Once the caveman learns how to have proper communication with the new village of people that he's ran into, and they're both going back and forth, this communication happens, he is now allowed to insert himself on a bigger picture level. I'm not just concerned about me, cave lady, my community, this community,
Everybody.
right. This is third eye consciousness. This
Mm-hmm.
is bird's view. This is bigger picture. It's about what's best for everybody, including the people that I'm not even aware of.
Mm-hmm.
This is third eye consciousness. And then you get into the crown chakra, and the crown chakra is where you've executed that. You have become the leader. Once you get to that bird's eye perspective and you choose to engage it and say, okay, you know what, I can see it. I'm qualified for this job. I'm not doing this job because I have an ego.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing this job because I'm the one that's qualified for it.
Right.
If someone else does this job, they're less qualified. That means it's not an ego. That's a qualification. It's a matter of qualification. And so the crown chakra now, after you get into that bird's eye view and you are leading and you are making those sacrifices, you become Moshe. You become Moses, which is now you're communicating directly with God, which is what happened to Moses. Moses and God were in a powwow.
Yeah.
Because Moses was on that vibrational scale, was on that vibrational level. And then he was teaching it, which is the nimbus, really. What is the nimbus doing?
Circulating.
Right, sending it out.
Yep.
So now you're teaching.
Nice.